Hello, my name is Edward Elliot Armitage, and I'm here to tell you about a man named Patrick J. Hurley, a man of great political stature, and he ties in with our National History Day theme, turning points in history, people, ideas, and events. Now sit back and enjoy the show. Mr. Patrick J. Hurley, born January 8th, 1883, in the Choctaw Nation, the son of Pierce O'Neill Hurley, a coal miner and sharecropper, and he was also the son of Mary Kelly. Patrick was orphaned at age 11. After being orphaned at age 11, he went to study at Indian University in Muskogee. After graduating from Indian University, he obtained a law degree in 1908 from the National University in Washington, D.C. After obtaining his law degree, he founded a law practice in Tulsa. He then met, in 1919, Ruth Wilson, with whom he had 4 children. An admirer of Teddy Roosevelt, Patrick Hurley became a Republican, ironically the minority party in Oklahoma at this time. Hurley had many significant diplomatic appointments, from Herbert Hoover's Secretary of War to FDR's Minister of New Zealand. Hurley's most important mission occurred when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt sent him to China, November 7th, 1943. Chiang Kai-shek's leader of the Nationalist Party, KMT, in China had asked the U.S. president to, quote-unquote, adjust relations between me and General Stilwell. Chiang Kai-shek was Sun Yat-sen's brother-in-law. Dr. Sun Yat-sen was a revolutionary who overthrew the Qing dynasty in 1911 and setting up the Republic of China. After Sun's death in 1925, Chiang became leader of the KMT. Chiang reunified most of China under the national government based in Nanjing. General Joseph Stilwell, known as Warren to his family, and Vinegar Joe to his subordinates, was the outspoken commander-in-chief of the American Army. World War II was still raging and the U.S. was fighting Japan. The U.S. General Stilwell wanted Chiang Kai-shek to build a coalition government with the Chinese Communists under Mao. A Chinese coalition government was necessary to enable the Allied forces more efficiently fight the Japanese in the Pacific Theater. Chiang Kai-shek, known as Generalissimo, and General Stilwell, known as Vinegar Joe, both welcomed Pat Hurley, described by Barbara Tuchman as, quote, a breezy Oklahoman who had risen from log cabin origins via the law, overseas services in World War I, was a tall, imposing man that talked even bigger than he looked, end quote. According to J. Taylor, Chiang Kai-shek's biographer, the Generalissimo, quote, found Hurley very sincere, quite different from American officials in the past, end quote. General Stilwell wryly observed that it takes, quote, oil as well as vinegar to make a good dressing, end quote, and welcomed Hurley to Chongqing. Patrick J. Hurley stepped off the plane, and right in the middle of a feud, Vinegar Joe, also known as General Stilwell, and the Generalissimo, also known as Chiang Kai-shek, hated each other. General Stilwell referred to the leader of the Chinese National Party as the Peanut. Pat Hurley's mission from Roosevelt was to support the recognized government, keep it from collapsing, and bring about the unification of the nationalist and communist forces, all while assessing the threat of the Soviets supporting Mao and the Chinese Communist Party. Eventually, Hurley succeeded in crafting an agreement that would give General Stilwell command of the forces in China, only to be sabotaged by Stilwell himself. That fateful afternoon of September 19th, 1944, Patrick Hurley had been meeting with Chiang Kai-shek all day and had accomplished the mission FDR had sent him to do. Chiang was about to hand over command of the Chinese army to General Stilwell. Hurley asked Stilwell not to come to the meeting, but he did, and Chiang said, quote, ask Stilwell to join us for tea, we will be glad to have him, end quote. Stillwell had in his hand the transcription of a radio message, quote, to be delivered in person, end quote, from FDR. For Stillwell to delay in delivering the message, Hurley stated, quote, no chief of state could tolerate such an insult as this letter, end quote. Hurley told Stillwell that Chiang had agreed to every demand in the letter that Stillwell had in his hand. Stillwell, tragically, had the audacity to persist and continued into the room. After reading this letter from FDR, Chiang inverted his teacup, a Chinese signal that the party is over. After everyone left, Chiang burst into, quote, compulsive and stormy sobbing, and wrote in his diary, quote, my heart is broken, end quote. That night, Stillwell wrote to his wife about being the, quote, avenging angel, end quote, and the following rhyme, quote, I've waited long for vengeance, and now I've had my chance. I've looked the peanut in the eye and kicked him in the pants. Hurley met this challenge of the potential destruction of U.S.-China relations by having Stillwell recalled to Washington. Stillwell publicly said that he had been, quote, hurlied out of China, end quote. Hurley worked with Chiang Kai-shek and Mao to build a united democratic China. His efforts, although ultimately unsuccessful, are no less heroic. Had Patrick Hurley not been undercut by the State Department, the history of China could have been different, and the communists may have been part of a coalition government. Thank you. I have been Edward Elliot Armitage, and I hope you have a good night.